Hey, so I want to share some stories that have stuck with me over the years, 5 separate occasions on a midnight train. They're all true and honestly, they still freak me out when I think about them. I guess it started when I was younger and took that train a lot, late at night, just by myself. At first it felt kind of exciting, like I was figuring out the world. But then, well, things changed. The first time was when I was about 12 years old. It was late, probably around midnight, and the train was almost empty. I was the only kid, surrounded by strangers who were tired and half asleep. There was this one man, sitting across from me. At first he just looked normal, maybe a little odd, but nothing super alarming. But then I noticed he kept glancing toward me every few minutes, like watching my every move. I tried to act like I wasn't paying attention, pulling out a book to read, but his eyes didn't leave me. The train was rattling along a route through a small town where everyone knew each other. It felt safe at first because I was familiar with the place. But then that man stood up suddenly, offered me a little candy, and asked if I wanted to play a game. My heart jumped. I forced a smile, said no thanks, and moved as far away as I could to another car when the train stopped at a station. The lights flickered, and for a moment, I swear I saw him waiting for me on the platform too. That's when I learned sometimes the places that seem safe aren't. A few years later, when I was in college, I had to catch a late train to visit family. It was a snowy night, so the train was delayed, and I ended up alone in a nearly empty car again. This time, the setting was more rural, dark, tree-lined tracks stretching for miles. As the train lurched forward, the only sound besides the engines was a faint tapping noise coming from the back of the car. I glanced back and saw nothing but shadows. Then, after a few moments, a voice whispered my name softly. No one was around. I froze, eyes darting toward the doors that led to the next cars. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to get away from there, but I couldn't risk standing up and making a scene. So I stayed put, pretending I hadn't heard anything. When the train finally stopped at a tiny station, I looked out the window and noticed no one else was boarding or waiting. Just the woods. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine and realized I'd been alone, but not alone. There was a trip where I was 19, living in the city but always escaping to the countryside on weekends. One late night, after visiting friends, I boarded the train home. It was packed initially, but slowly emptied until only a handful of us remained. There was a woman sitting nearby who kept muttering to herself, rocking back and forth. At first I tried to ignore her, but soon she looked directly at me, eyes wide and frantic. She leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't trust the man with the black coat, not at the next stop." I didn't know what to make of it. It sounded insane, but there was something in her voice I couldn't shake. When we pulled into a small station, a shadowy figure wearing a black coat got on, moving silently between the cars. I was frozen, heart racing, waiting for something terrible to happen. But nothing did, except that feeling of sheer dread that clung to me long after. On another occasion, it was late November, and I was heading to a remote cabin for a writing retreat. The train crossed through mountainous terrain, and the windows showed nothing but thick forests and fog. Most people had gotten off before the final stop, leaving me alone in the almost empty car. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out for what felt like an eternity. When they came back, I noticed a man standing by the door, dressed in a dark hoodie, face hidden in shadows. He didn't move or speak, just stared. I asked if he needed help, but he only tilted his head and smiled in a way that made my skin crawl. I kept my eyes away, pulling my jacket tighter around me and clutching my bag like a shield. When the train finally stopped, he got off before anyone else, melting into the darkness. I never saw him again, but sometimes I wonder if he followed me all the way to that lonely cabin. The last story, I was older then, around 23, had to do with a moment when I almost got off at the wrong stop. I was exhausted after a late shift, barely able to keep my eyes open. the train slowed at a small platform, dimly lit and empty, except for one person, a delivery driver holding a package. He smiled politely and asked if I needed help with my bags or to call a cab. Something about the way he said it made me hesitate and feel suddenly uneasy, like a gut instinct warning. I thanked him but quickly moved down the aisle to another car. When I peeked back out the window, he was still standing there, watching the train pull away, and not in a friendly way. That night, I didn't sleep much. I realized even when you think someone is just trying to be helpful, sometimes there's something else beneath the surface. That hidden feeling of danger, waiting for the right moment. Looking back, each of these midnight trains seemed safe at first, full of familiar faces, or just silence to calm my nerves. But the real horror was how quickly things changed, the moments when safety shattered, and I had to face the unknown. The strange figures, the sudden sounds, the chilling encounters, they carved themselves into my memory in a way that never fully goes away. And maybe that's the worst part. The train keeps moving forward, but you're stuck with those moments, those fears riding alongside you long after the midnight journey ends. So if you ever find yourself alone on a train in the dead of night, just remember, sometimes the scariest stories aren't made up. They're there, waiting in the shadows, riding right next to you,